Hi there YouTube, XtremeTrainz here. So it seems to be the pattern on my channel that we go for months with no videos about Thomas Minis, and then bam, in the space of a few weeks, we've got multiple. And that's exactly what's happened here. Just after uploading my review of Wave 3, I found this week in my local supermarket Woolworths, Wave 4. Now, in other reviews, I've actually shown the entire wave, including the duplicates, but I thought just to demonstrate exactly what's going on with the minis this year, I was going to take away all the duplicates from last year and show you just purely the minis that are new for this year in this wave. And as you can see, when you do this, it's actually a little bit depressing. But that said, there are some excellent minis in this wave, which I want to take a look at. So, what are we waiting for? Let's do it. Paperwork for these minis is exactly the same as it was for the Wave 3 minis, so if you want to have a look at that, I trust you to go over to that video and take a look. However, the packaging in this one, as is standard for this year, yet again, is different. So we've got the 4 of 2016, and then we've got the engines that are in this wave on the front. As you can see, some of the duplicates, such as, what is that, Scarloey and Gator, and one of the twins, I forget which one, and Samson are printed on here, but equally you can see the all-important Platinum Thomas is there. Now he's actually in this bag here. I got an extra one of him. He's bag 51 for those of you in Australia. But yeah, that's what these guys look like on the shelves. So, what are we waiting for? Let's take a look. First engine to look at is the Core Moments Victor, aka the yellow soaked Victor, after falling in the water from Blue Mountain Mystery. Again, this is an interesting choice of core moment because it is quite recent in the 70 years of Thomas and Friends franchise. But that said, it's probably something which I think was quite heavily merchandised, and so I imagine a lot of kids at least know about it to some extent. And I think, again, this is quite nice. I'm really, really happy with this core moment engine. I think it does a really good justice to A, what actually happens in the movie, but also just in replicating quite an iconic scene because you've got a totally different paint scheme for him, as well as the really, really nice details. As you can see, as with all the minis, really, really fine details are done on here to really make it pop. Looks really, really nice. Equally, I always appreciate when they print the face, and you can see this one here is painted with water, and there's some seaweed and barnacles and stuff on his face. So, I really, really like this one. Excellent, and I'm glad that it's included as a core moment. The next new rolling stock for this wave is the Troublesome Truck Creature Edition. So, as you can see, this is exactly the same mould as was used for the other Troublesome Truck that we got this year, but it's in a recast in a new colour. We've got it in the grey colour. You can see it's kind of meant to be like kind of an Aquaman kind of thing. You can see it's got a big octopus in there who is definitely almost escaping from the top. I think from a distance you can almost get away with it just being a red painted truck, which is why I actually bought a couple of these. So I've got 4 or 5 of these trucks, because I think they help fill out your minis layout. But yeah, again, I think it's good. I just think it's a little bit bizarrely specific. As I said in my previous review with, oops, throwing the truck everywhere. This was an odd colour scheme for them to choose for the first truck. I would like to have seen this just in a couple of different variations of normal trucks before we got the special one. One thing to note here is that this wave particularly seemed to have a lot of like Friday specials in the way it was made. And what I mean by that is a lot of the engines actually came out misaligned. As you can see, this one, it's kind of hard to tell, but if you look closely you can see that the running board disappears, and it's because the screws on these are quite loose. So that means the top part of the Mini, which is only held in by that big screw on the bottom, is quite loose. So pulling a lot of these out of the packaging, they were twisted and kind of a bit deformed. So I was kind of confused because it seems that like otherwise the printing actually seems to have gotten better on these Minis. Let me just show you. So we can look at the face here on the new truck versus the face on the old truck, and you can see here that, it's kind of hard to pick up on camera, but there are definitely like lines in the printing on this truck's face. There you go, particularly through the middle there, you can see there are distinct lines in the printing. Just 2 waves later, we're seeing that, hang on, if I can get to focus, come on, love me. Yeah, obviously it doesn't like, yeah, there we go, gotcha. You can see that those lines have totally disappeared, and it is actually a much crisper print. So on the one hand, the printing seems to have gotten better, but then also less production values. I don't know what's going on there. The next one is Graffiti Pack. Now this one, I think, is one of the graffiti ones done really well. Why is that? Because they've included some extra paint graffiti on the top so that he doesn't look like the standard Paxton as soon as you actually get in close. And I think that one's really good. I really like this one. I think this is how the graffiti engine should have been done, and this is one which I think is nice to pick up. Yeah, I'm very happy to complete that series. Very cool idea, in my opinion, I reckon. I think, yeah, this is the idea which I thought was quite cool, executed really well. The next one is a mini which I didn't realise we were getting into. I literally walked into the store and looked up the checklist, is Electrified Henry. Now, again, I'm explaining I'm a really big fan of the translucent, transparent engines. That means the electric series, and this Henry also does not disappoint. The wheels are done in a clear green plastic. The running board is in a translucent kind of red plastic. It's kind of hard to tell at points, but it is. And his body's done in that green plastic. I think, again, the body suffers from being a little bit too dark, but I think that's compensated for by having the clear wheels and the clear running board. And then equally, this fantastic, fantastic printing. Trying to show it to you there, you can see it's just awesomely done. I love the fact that it's like red electricity as well. Yeah, I think this one is, again, not my favourite. I think Hero is my favourite electric engine, but it's definitely up there and definitely eye-catching. The next one to look at is the Sports Edward. This one's interesting to me because I understand it's meant to be like, you know, soccer or football if you're, you know, depending on who you ask. Interesting though in the way that they've decided to design it. Most of the other sports engines have had both elements of the sport on the actual engine as well as like the ball used in the sport, if that makes sense. For example, you know, Bill had the tennis rackets, but also it was in the shape or in the pattern of a tennis ball. This one, though, is just like, I'm assuming the bottom of Edward is meant to be the grass of the pitch, and the top is meant to be the soccer ball. You can see that with the stitching. But it's just a really interesting colour choice to go for the blue. I mean, I imagine that's to match actual Edward. I don't know, the colours on this one are kind of weird, but I actually quite like it. I think this is one of the sports ones that I really quite like. Yeah, I don't really have anything more to say, except I think it just looks really, really cool. What's interesting to note here is that Edward's face has also changed from year to year. You can see that he was looking a little bit more forward here, and now he's started to look to the left. And that'll become even more noticeable when we look at the next Edward, which is a super weird one. It looks like it's meant to be a racer Edward. But when you look at it on the actual Minis site, or the collected checklist that someone has made up, it comes up with something completely different, and I'll show you what that is in just one second. So the Minis checklist identifies this as Black Adam Edward, aka some DC Comics character, but it's really odd because he's in the middle of the wave, whereas previously all the DC Comics engines have been at the end of the wave, as you'll see here, these last three, ignoring Stanley for a second, were all the DC ones. So I don't know, this one seems really out of place. I think you could definitely get away with this being a racer Edward, as opposed to a DC Edward. Interesting to note, talking about like Friday specials, again, like this Edward, you can see the back of him is like kind of not fitted properly. Something's not in the right place. On my version of this Edward, you can see it's kind of separated out. So yeah, something's going on there. And then equally, this Edward face, I don't know if it's intentional just for this version or not, has a giant black border around it. Let's get to focus in there. You can see it's got quite a large black border, and he's kind of a bit offset compared to this face, which goes almost to the edge of the boiler and the smoke box. This one really, really has a black circle around it, and I don't know if that's specific to this Edward, or if it's just an error on my one. I'm not sure, but yeah, this one's certainly an oddity. But again, I actually think it looks really cool. I really like the colours on it and the design. I just think that, yeah, I think it would have been better as a racer than a DC Comics engine. Now, this is the one to get from this series. The same way the Gold Thomas was last time, this one is your Platinum Thomas, and I actually think this looks better than the Gold Thomas. Now, hear me out, it's because I don't think the metallic silver of the body clashes as much with the kind of grey silver plastic that they used, whereas I thought that the gold on the Thomas kind of clashed a lot with A, the red of the running board, and B, the kind of creamy gold colour that you use for the wheels. So I actually think this one looks more collectible, dare I say it. Yeah, he's a really, really nice one to get. I'd recommend getting a couple of this one. Again, mine has a really loose, like, face. His face is kind of, as you can see, it's kind of tilted upwards. kind of jiggling around a bit. I don't know what the go is there, but apparently he's got a heap of, this batch was really kind of like QC failed or something. You can see his face is wobbling there. But otherwise, really, really nice one. Definitely pick this one up. Alright, we're already at the tail end of this review. So, next thing we've got here are the DC engines for this wave. That is Beast Boy Luke. No idea who that is. I'm assuming it's DC's rip-off of the Hulk. Rip. Yeah, again, don't have a lot of comment on this one, mainly because I just don't know the character, so I don't know if this is accurate or not. Kind of a cool colour scheme, but also a little bit weird, this one for me. Yeah, I don't know. Let me know your thoughts, but I'm not a big fan. The next one is one I did recognise, which was Salty as Aquaman, or Aquaman as Salty. Cool use of Salty. I think it's very appropriate in the fact that we've given Aquaman to Salty, the you know, the sea dog of Thomas and Friends. Again, though, I'm not a big fan of these DC ones. I think this is probably quite a decent rendition of the cartoon version of the character. I know he definitely has green on the bottom with the yellow and the orange on the top. But beyond that, you know, I don't have a lot of feelings towards this one. Finally, though, we have Wonder Woman Emily. And this one I actually really, really like, mainly because I think Wonder Woman is a kick-ass character. But equally, I just think the colours and everything look really good. It's the same way I quite like the Superman Thomas. Just because he's got really eye-catching colours, I think, again, as is intentional of Wonder Woman's costume, but equally of his mini, it just jumps out at you. It's got, you know, the red and the yellow and the blue and the black, all coming together really, really nicely. I think this is a really cool one, and even though I'm not a DC Minis fan, I'm really happy to have got this one, because I think she looks really, really awesome, and yeah, this is definitely one of the ones which I'm like, yeah, that's really cool. And last but not least from this wave is Creature Stanley, who for some reason is shoved on the end. I don't know why, but he was. But yeah, you can see this one is quite interesting. I'm assuming he's meant to be first I thought he was a dog with the eyes, and then I saw the bamboo and I realised he's meant to be like a panda. So this is Panda Stanley. Interesting. I like that they've used the white colour and taken that to extreme proportions. The Creature series has, yeah, always been a bit weird for me. This one just looks too much to me like a Dalmatian dog, which is fine. But it just kind of means I think they lost the panda vibe a little bit, despite their attempts with the bamboo. But I still think it's kind of a cool one. Just this wasn't my favourite kind of sub-theme of the minis, so yeah, make your pick. The last thing I want to know about this wave was, super bizarrely, there are some numbers in this wave which just don't have any engines. Like, it just skips numbers. I would recommend you check out the checklist online to figure out which ones those are, but yeah, I found that it seemed really odd for Mattel to skip all these numbers when, as far as we know, there's no reason for them to do that, except unless it is to, you know, like, make people think there's more minis than there actually are. I don't know. Okay, so my final thoughts on Series 4. As you can see, again, really not happy with the lack of new minis we've been getting, even though my wallet's quite happy. Particularly in just that, yeah, it just doesn't, it hasn't excited me as collecting these minis as much as it really did last year, and I don't know if that's just the fact that we're not getting as many new ones, or maybe it's that the excitement has kind of worn off a little bit, but either way, Mattel's going to have to really do some big stuff next year to get me really back keen to the minis, because, don't get me wrong, I still find them really cool, and I still really like collecting them, but they've definitely kind of lost the charm a little bit when I used to just buy a whole box, and now it's a matter of like, oh, no, you don't get that because you've already got 3 copies of Percy. Although, interestingly enough, I only have 1 copy of the normal Thomas somehow. I have duplicates of heaps of others, but not Thomas. Anyway, in terms of my favorites from this wave, obviously if you're going to pick the Platinum Thomas, I think it's really excellent, definitely worth picking up, even if you're not a Minis fan, if you're just a Thomas collector. It looks really nice on your shelf. The Henry, I think, is really, really nice. Victor's really, really nice. And also, yeah, surprise of the lot was Wonder Woman Emily, who I think is really, really cool. I actually don't have any, apart from these 2 here, which I'm a little bit ambivalent about. I think all the other ones in this wave are quite nice, and I'm really happy with them. And it'll be really nice to finally finish off some of the series I've started this year. But in the same thing that I've said in my other minis videos, yeah, something needs to happen next year, whether that is more sets that are slightly more interesting. I know we're getting more rolling stock and more classic engines, but they really need to ramp up that rolling stock thing if they want this line to continue. And again, the distribution's just been super duper weird. Like, you know, I saw Series 3 one week, it sold out, and a couple of weeks later Series 4 was there. So there was literally no chance for anyone to come back and get any they missed. I know the way that these were put out on the shelf was not even in those cardboard boxes. They were just piled onto a shelf into some Hot Wheels boxes. And I just had to like, there would have been about 3 or 4 boxes worth, or like sets worth of these. And I had to just trawl through all of them to find the ones that I wanted in the middle of the supermarket, which was just awkward. So I don't really know what's going on in terms of distribution, but something whack is happening. And if Mattel wants to sell these, because people want to buy them, because they were gone when I went a couple of days later, nearly all of them were sold already, they need to get onto distribution and work it out. Because on the one hand, you still have Wave 1 and 2, like, shelf-warming super hard in places like some Kmart's and Toys R Us, where there's 6 or 7 boxes of Wave 1 and 2 from this year, or even Wave 4 from last year sitting there, while equally other places have none, and they're clearly in demand. So, don't know what's going on there, but Mr. Mattel, please sort that out, because people actually want to buy the stuff you make, which is alright. Okay, they're my thoughts on this year's minis. I hope I've informed you in some way. I'll do a recap video of all the minis from this year towards the end of the year, when I picked up some of the other more specialised minis which I have to buy online, such as the glow-in-the-dark ones and the motorised racing set. So there will definitely be at least one more minis video for the year, just to show the whole collection of this year's minis all together and make a bit of a comparison and talk about that. Otherwise, don't forget to do all those cool things on YouTube, like and subscribe, and tell me what you think about this kind of stuff. I always love reading all your comments because it's great. And yeah, as always, thanks for watching. That's all I've got time for. This is XtremeTrainz.